Welcome to the 2023 Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series, filmed on location at the IGFA and brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Mako Boats. You're about to learn from teams of some of the top saltwater fishing pros, and how you really glean the most from the Saltwater Sportsman Seminar Series is listen for the little subtleties, the small things that we are doing to put together a great catch or to get a few fish when times are tough out there. So let's get right down to it and start off the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series.
Coming to you from the IGFA in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, it's the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series, brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Mako Boats. Get ready, everybody. Here's George Poveromo.
Welcome to the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series, filmed on location at the IGFA, brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Mako Boats. How to read an ocean. A very intriguing session on locating fish under various conditions. And the ocean is such a large place. If you try to dial in on certain pelagics, there's a lot to it. And we're going to try to get to the basic understandings of where you should be searching for a variety of pelagics. And helping us lead the way on this one is Matt Upton, who is the owner of Ross Fishing Forecast Analyses, who studies all this and helps with everything from eddies to true edges, the Gulf Stream, and a lot beyond that too. And then out of North Carolina, we have Captain David Wicker, who's not only an electronics guru, but he spends a lot of his time king mackerel fishing. And of course, we've got the pride of Cape May, New Jersey, is Captain Tom Daffin, who is a terror when it comes to catching tunas, canyon fishing, deep dropping, striped bass, you name it. He does a tremendous job. Now, Matt, I'm going to start with you. And I had mentioned in the Mahi session earlier, the Florida Keys Mahi session, that I like to find out where that lifeblood is when I set out to fish. And it's true with the Mahi as well, whether I'm off of South Florida or whether I'm in the Bahamas looking for yellowfins or marlin. And the lifeblood I'm talking about is the Gulf Stream. Now, for, again, the uninitiated, where people think, well, you got this warm water river flowing north, it meanders like a snake. Some days you could find that western edge somewhat close in. A few days later, you could find it several miles offshore. And I always like to know where that western edge is, and I look for where it comes in over deep water structures, 600 feet of water, or where it comes in over any wrecks. And that helps me determine whether I want to go out and get, say, mahi or do something on the troll if that's 700 feet of water, or when you get a hard east breeze that blows it even tighter, it could set up some good sail fishing. So let me go to you, because you do all these analyses, is, again, working the southeast Florida, and then working our way up to the edge of the Gulf Stream. Does that tend to flow closer to shore more in the winter versus the summer? What could you tell us about the true edge?
It really varies, and it's not really specific to any sort of season. It's changing. Everything's different. Let me give you a quick background on what we do. What I do, I look at the ocean conditions by satellite, sea surface temperature, ocean color, and really you can cut down your time to search for the best conditions based on where they're at when you start off the dock, right? So where are you going to go to be most productive that day? And you're looking for sea surface temperature fronts, currents, bottom structure. When all that lines up, like on the edge of the Gulf Stream, that's where you want to start your day. So you're not wasting fuel, you're not wasting time. That's important. So you start off right off the beginning of the day to know where to go. And so that Gulf Stream fluctuates in and out every single day. Eddies roll through. You got to find out where the best conditions are. Do a little research before you go offshore.
And what I like about the Ross Fishing Forecast Analyses is that you got all these water surface temperatures, but you edit it down to the more pronounced breaks.
Yes.
So you don't have to wade through a lot of them to trying to find these, and you could see where the breaks. In our area here, you got a half a degree or 1 degree here. That's a major break for us. Whereas you get up to Tom's Way, and that's pretty much nothing there too. But one thing on locating that western edge that we see from time to time is you don't tend to get the eddies and correct me if I'm wrong, out of South Florida like you do mid-Atlantic and Northeast, but what we do see that I've noticed is you get these fingers. The stream's going up, all of a sudden there's an elongated finger that goes out and comes in with that Gulf Stream water. And then as that Gulf Stream goes, it's fast moving, it gets reabsorbed. And if you could even see where one of these fingers may be, that could help out. Now, before we move on, how quickly does the ROS update?
Once a day. So you're ordering analysis the day before you fish, and then we do a forecast on where those conditions are going to be the morning after, the day after. So like George said, eddies move through the Keys, off of Miami, up the stream. On the western side of the stream, they're counterclockwise. Right. And they'll push in fingers of blue water toward the coast, and that's a lot of times where you're going to find your mahi, or find your sailfish, find your better pelagics, is where that Gulf Stream water is pushing inshore, so you don't have to run quite as far.
And in fact, we have an eddy moving in right now. It's called commercials. So we're going to take a commercial break and come back to it. The Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series. We'll be right back.
The Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series is brought to you by Simrad. Go with Simrad and go with confidence. Penn, let the battle begin. ROFS, comprehensive oceanographic analysis for fishing. Mercury Outboards, go boldly. Angle, portable fridge freezers and high-performance coolers. George will be right back. Welcome back to the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series from the IGFA in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Mako Boats. Let's get right back to George.
We're back to the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series at the IGFA, brought to you by Mako Boats and Bass Pro Shops. How to read an ocean. I want to move back up to that northeast. Tom.
So what I do is I look which way the eddy's moving. In other words, if it's moving up the 100 fathom line or down the 100 fathom line, it's either going to the northeast or the southwest. Okay. Primarily, they're going to flow to the southwest because our primary current is coming down the 100 fathom line. I believe that tuna fish are kind of on the lazy side, and they want to be on the back side of it. So normally what I do is if I find the water, I try to find the northernmost edge of that water where it relates to the structure, the bottom structure.
Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong, or what you're saying here is the northernmost edge. Is that where that flow is coming from deep into shallow?
So I don't really care so much if it's going in a clockwise or counterclockwise motion myself personally. I just feel as though the fish are trailing in the water. Some people do believe that where the motion is coming into the 100 fathom line, into the hard wall, is primarily where the fish would be, whether it's on the southern or northern edge. I particularly do better on the trailing edge, which meaning if it's coming down the line, I want to go to the northern side. If it's moving up the line, I want to be on the southwest end of it, the southern end of it.
All right, and let me give you an example, and you tell me what you would choose. Okay, you got your canyons, and nothing really going on in Wilmington, but you've got a canyon, an eddy situated nearby that may not be on a canyon per se, may be a tad more towards the inshore. Mm-hmm. Now, would you take the chances of going out and just trolling around the canyon based on bottom structure, or would you sit and work an eddy that might be more closer inshore?
So one of the things I really look at, which I use match stuff all the time, one of the biggest things is the chlorophyll shots to me. Absolutely. I like chlorophyll shots. If I have hard chlorophyll breaks, even if it is in 40, 50 fathoms inshore of it, that would be a place where I would definitely look for fish at. Early in our season, like in June, and then later in our season, in like late September and into October, is more so when I start looking at the temperatures more so than anything. In the summer months, in July and August, I like to fish the cleaner water because most of the time, if you got 75-degree water and 78-degree water, they're all within the tuna fish's range where you can catch them at. It all has to do with water clarity then at that point. And just so if we're trolling, the fish can see the baits better, And it also, those really hard chlorophyll breaks is where everything starts at as far as the food chain starts at.
Sure. And Matt, coming back to the chlorophyll, on the ROS, how do you mark the chlorophyll versus regular water surface temperature breaks?
So, ocean color breaks and sea surface temperature breaks many times line up the same. And so we're looking at ocean color, chlorophyll, and sea surface temperature. And these water mass boundaries are convergent zones. The longer they're stable and favorable, they're more likely to become convergent zones for the start of the life cycle.
And let me ask you real quick for clarification. When you're saying the chlorophyll, that's pretty much plankton?
Yeah.
Abundance of plankton, which is, like you mentioned, that's the life source.
So the satellite can see if the water is green or blue, blue being clear, green being a little bit dirtier, but the greener the water, the more biology, and that's where your plankton's at. That's a indication of where plankton's at.
Bait fish accumulate for that, and which draws
then
in your
bring in
largers.
the life cycle, right? The bait fish, which brings in your larger pelagics, marlin, tuna, wahoo, dolphin.
And not to shift the focus back down to South Florida, but the chlorophyll, the plankton zones, I've done well on those dolphin hunting in the Florida Keys where you're running, and you see where you've got the zone, and there's no weeds or nothing, and twice this had happened, you see flyers in this area, just a bunch of flying fish, there's nothing else in there. Both times we've got on a dolphin based on the amount of plankton or the chlorophyll, which is a very key element in that too. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna come back, I wanna grill everybody here on the eddies, and I wanna talk about some of the king mackerel, how water temperature conditions play for more close to shore species. But we're going to take an eddy back out to a commercial break. You're watching the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series. We're coming right back after a few commercials.
The Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series is brought to you by Rapala, your best shot at a world record. Suffix, always use the best line. VNC, your expert in hooks. Williamson Lures for the pelagic playground. Starbright, blending technology with performance since 1973. George will be right back. Welcome back to the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series from the IGFA in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Mako Boats. Let's get right back to George.
You're watching the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series, How to Read an Ocean. We're at the IGFA, the Saltwater Sportsman Seminar Series, brought to you by Bass Pro Shops, Mako Boats. I'm working with Matt Upton from Ross Fishing Forecast Analyses. And we were discussing the chlorophyll, the plankton concentrations as being really, really key. And coming back to, say, that zone or a real strong boundary there, and also an eddy that might be parked, and both you guys, all three of you can jump in here for if I'm right, wrong, or indifferent, but isn't the waters more or tend to be more productive for the pelagics? The longer an eddy stays in place, the longer a plankton chlorophyll zone stays in place versus a faster moving one. True, false, or in between? Here?
I go by.
I would say true.
I go by what Matt's analysis says. When you look at his analysis, you'll also, there's one of the charts that says, like, you'll see a bunch of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The higher the number, the longer that eddy has been in that area. Right. And the longer it's been there, the more chance those fish have to find that area, without a doubt.
And that just gives you time to build up an ecosystem, and everything starts from the lower forms of the life all the way up to the big pelagic. It's just the stationary. It's a feeding front, basically.
To piggyback on the eddies, there's a study that just came out that said that anticyclonic or clockwise rotating eddies are actually more productive overall.
Now, why is that?
If the water's pushing from deeper to shallower, that is usually more productive
for the
overall.
Yeah, that's where I find it for kingfishing is the upwelling.
Because common sense, if the water's pulling offshore, it's dispersing everything.
All right, let's take a little trip closer to shore to Dave's area of expertise over here. Dave, you king mackerel fish a ton, and where does all this really come into play in helping you locate zones that might be more productive to maybe get larger kings or even school kings?
Well, school kings, you know, you can pretty much find them just about anywhere that you've got a good upwelling. I have a tendency to look where the plankton contours are nice and tight. The biggest thing is I'll look at the Ross chart and I'll find the highest number that he's got. And that's going to be the first place I'm going to look to see what I can find there.
More established zone, obviously.
Yeah. But, you know, there again, to me, the upwelling and the structure is the biggest play in king mackerel.
Understood. Now, with your analyses, and it's all pelagics pretty much, but you also do more nearshore. Explain a bit like that. I mean, you do stuff with the king mackerel fishermen. Do you do anything that it might even relate to striped bass migration or anything along those lines? Tell me what you have to offer the more coastal angler with the
Yeah,
rods.
kingfish, cobia, a lot of the same principles that apply to offshore apply to inshore. And if you have any sort of idea on where those stronger breaks are, where that color changes, and it lines up over structure, whether it be, I mean, you can catch, king mackerel just right offshore a mile or two. If those conditions are right near shore, then we can, there's a number of services out there, but do a little bit of research before you go offshore and know where those breaks are, where those conditions are better inshore.
And Dave,
as far
go
as
ahead.
the king mackerel go, the latter part of the year, October, November, up in our area is where it's really the best, close to
In
shore.
your area, North Carolina.
Yep. Is really close to shore.
And we're going to come back on temperature and talk about the importance of that too in these forecasts. We're going to take a commercial break. The Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series on how to read an ocean. We'll be right back after a few commercials.
The Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series is brought to you by Atlas Tracks, satellite tracking of recreational pleasure boats, supply vessels, and fishing fleets. Columbia Sportswear, stay cool and protected while fishing. JL Audio, ahead of the curve. ACR, building survival products since 1956. Florida Keys and Key West, visit flakeys.com. George will be right back. Welcome back to the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series from the IGFA in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Mako Boats. Let's get right back to George.
You're watching the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series filmed at the IGFA and brought to you by Mako Boats and Bass Pro Shops. How to read an ocean is the center of an eddy itself. Does anyone ever concentrate on that, or is that just, no, you play off the edges?
Oh, absolutely. And it all has to do with how it relates to your bottom structure.
Give me an idea.
So if I have a center of an eddy that's washing up on one of the corners, especially up on the northeast corner of one of our canyons, I would definitely take a hard look at that, because our primary currents are coming down the line, coming from the northeast to the southwest, and the east walls and the northeast corners of these canyons are more times than not the most productive areas that we fish.
Very interesting. And coming back down to our area here in Florida, where a big break, a half a degree to a 1 degree break is big, in a lot of cases, debris tends to get accumulated on that too. So you look for that little degree temperature breaks, and sometimes there might not be any weeds, there might not be any kind of a line or a rip or an edge, but you could know you're in a stream by that half a degree to a degree, and at least you know in that zone that there's something different. You've got that warm water stream moving north. You got the nearshore slope water abutting it, and again, there's nutrients that form on those lines. And when there's nothing really else to fish, put your baits out and you troll on that temperature or the edge of the stream itself.
That's what I'll do kingfishing is if I find a break, I'll try both sides of it and see which one produces. If nothing produces, I'll zigzag back and forth. And then usually once you hit the right spot, you'll sit there and you'll pull in several.
Matt, going back to you, what about the abilities to read, in a lot of cases, you get to Central Florida and they get these cold water upwellings, which just ruin the bottom fishing. Is there any way from temperature breaks to see if there are upwellings present where you would know, well, I'm not going bottom fishing into the zones over there? Or...
Yeah, there's different ways to read it. It depends on which way the wind's blowing. I'm not a weatherman. I'm a weatherman of the ocean. But yeah, you could see lots of times ocean color chlorophyll specifically, or sea surface temperature. When that water's cooler, you might want to stick further offshore that day. Just depends on what you're fishing for as well.
Yeah, where cobias tend to go on those cold water upwellings, they seem to come on there, but it really shuts the bottom fish off. So yeah, that's a zone that could be helpful there too.
You got to remember, fish that are visual feeders, right?
Exactly. And I've intentionally stayed away from the obvious, like rips. You know, you could go over and that just reeks of fish over here. I wanted to really work this session on more the scientific, the water surface temperature, current flows, and how that relates into fishing, because the other items with rips and all that are self-explanatory. If it's over that depth zone that you're targeting certain pelagics, you know chances are you're going to work that. But when you hit these features and they're not so visual, how do you work the surface temperatures? How do you work the chlorophyll zones? This is really what really helps us master what we do at our pelagics. In the case of Dave Wicker, some of the nearshore coastal species. And unfortunately, we ran out of time on this one too. It just brings us by here. But I want to thank Matt Upton, Captain Dave Wicker, and Captain Tom Daffin for that session on how to read an ocean. You're watching the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series. There you have it. The Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series will be right back next week with a totally different episode. If you want a chance to win our Super Grand Prize Mako 17 Pro Skiff Center console, powered by Mercury Outboard, enter the drawing at nationalseminarseries.com. One lucky winner will take home this beautiful Mako boat. Best of luck.